Oh. Uh-oh. Wonder what just happened. Just gonna wait for Vanessa to reconnect. Here we go. Hi. You're muted.
Hi.
Oh, also, I had the sound off, so it didn't matter that you were muted. I couldn't have heard you anyway. Hi.
Oh, that's funny. Hi.
Whew, how's your day been so far?
Oh my God. Like, it's never a simple answer with me. I think you know that, right? Like, I'm just so transparent. I always have to say that disclaimer because I always worry like it's too much for other people, but I can't. I'm being accepting of myself that it's a lot. I feel like this season is very me-esque, like very much hermit mode, like tenfold. Like, I really don't have very much tolerance for others and other people's energy, which makes me just want to implement more boundaries, or the boundaries I already have, like being really stern about them, because I'm recognizing that that's the way I honor myself and how I can keep doing the service that I'm meant to do. And so a lot has just been happening. And I keep saying this, is that so much has been happening in a short amount of time, and not a lot of time for integration, or at least not the amount of time that I'm used to for integrating. And so what I'm learning also is that, and this could be for everyone, right, in a certain way, is that, like, I think I'm finding that I don't need as much time to integrate, and therefore not given the time I'm used to. It's like, it's already, there's nothing to process, like things are already leaving or they're on their way out. That integration, I don't know, it's just there's conflict even with that comment, because I could feel in my body that, okay, I'm gonna give you an example. Today I just had an interview and I did a reading, both at the same time, with one of the members of our community, and I love her so much. She's so fantastic, so knowledgeable too, and it was super powerful. But at the beginning of it, I had to tell her, like, I really need to stay, I have to manage our time, because I don't have time, energy to spend. I felt really depleted today, and also really focused, which I think, again, is very hermit-esque, right? It's like, finally things are clear. Whatever fears I had previously are kind of out of the way, and now it's time to go and do the work. But I don't have energy to waste.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're on a very similar wavelength, and it works for this talk, because I wouldn't say I need less time to integrate. I think I need more, and it's like hard for me to like get the space. So I'm also working on my boundaries with people so that I can really have the hermit time that I need. And I want to be, I think I just I have so many pots on the stove personally that I should, whatever that means, I should be able to manage all of them. And I can, with space for me to also honor the hermit year that I'm in, that it's been calling me in so many different ways. Even just the numerology of 2021 for me is a hermit year for me. And I didn't know what that would mean or what that would look like. I feel like I don't want to say I'm very external, but I do process externally, and I tend to, I talk a lot, and I'm very social. And this year, I have needed more time to myself, and more than ever needed that space to actually physically be alone too, which is something that I don't get often. And I think with everything that's happened in the last year and some change, it's funny how I feel like personally kind of like busy, but still kind of isolated, like overstimulated, but also there is that sense of like, not loneliness, but just like, oh wow, I need people, but I want quality, not quantity. And I'm really like fine tuning the quality over quantity idea with work and relationships, everything. So
wow, I relate to that part of quality over quantity.
right.
I have two questions for you from this. Is
Okay.
one, how did you arrive to the hermit year number 9 for you this year? That's question number one. And then question number two, or was it even a question? I think I wanted to just make a statement to relate to also just how I was feeling today, which was I was speaking to my best friend this afternoon or this morning, and it drained me so much. I thought I really needed that connection. I wanted to connect, and then just found that it was just too depleting. Again, not having enough energy to really sustain that conversation and what was in the conversation, which I was not expecting, and which also has taught me that I'm a Cancer rising, so it's really taught me that I'm an absorber, even without intention. Like it just happens. And so no matter how many layers of energy, healing, and clearing, it just seems as though my pores are just naturally large to absorb. And I need to constantly be sure that I'm making sure my boundaries are set and enforced. But I'm curious, again, let's go back to
how I came to the hermit year. I just added, in the same way you come up with your life card or your soul card, right? You just add up your birthday. You can do that with each year. And so for 2021, when I add up all my digits, I get hermit, which is number 9, and and when I do that, I consider the moon, number 18, the teacher card. So that is based off Mary Kay Greer's. I think I used the same equation she did. I might have changed it a little bit for the way that I like to see it. It's been so long since I like read the books that I like learned that method from. But yeah, just isolate each digit and add them together. If you get something under 22. Yeah. And if you get 22, you can read that as the Fool, or you could add the 2s and be Emperor. It just depends. Like people see it differently. So
yeah.
But what decks did you bring?
Oh, so my Anima Mundi, of course. Yes. I must. I also have the Aquarian. Yeah, Aquarian. I have my Cosmic Tarot. I have the Herbal Tarot. And then one that is extremely challenging for me that I may or may not share is Celestial Tarot.
I don't think I know that deck.
It's a doozy. It's very astrology, like constellations and like all of that kind of medicine. And that is just so far-fetched for me. I've tried to work with it. It's just like like won't go in for whatever reason.
Or maybe it's just not the right time, right? Because do you ever have that with decks where it's like, oh, it doesn't really resonate, and then later you pick it up and you're like, oh wait, it works for me now. Like I get you now.
Yes, I have. I feel like that's what it was with the Cosmic Tarot. That was like, at first I was like, oh, I'm not sure, but my guides were like, you need to work with it. And so when I did, and I put myself in position to do it, it was the time for that, for sure.
Sweet.
What decks you got?
I just brought 2, but then now I'm remembering I have a newer deck, because last time we did this, I was like, okay, maybe I do want a new deck, but it wasn't one you showed me. It's actually the Alchemical Tarot, which has been interesting as I've gone like deeper with Hermetics. It's been interesting to look at those cards because I see so much imagery that relates. And then I kind of, working with it, I'm understanding other concepts I'm working on, like as I learn, actually with y'all at 22 Teachings. So maybe I'll get that deck out later. But otherwise, I brought my main squeeze right now, which is the Apparition Tarot from Mary Evans. And it's big and it's weird. It's got fairies. You know, I had to buy it for that reason. And I put it down so many times, but I always come back to it because it's just so weird. And I love it. And then an oldie but goodie, the Morgan Greer Tarot, which is one of my vintage decks that I just like treasure so much. Just in the Aquarian Tarot, actually. But I knew you had that deck, so I was like, I won't bring it.
Yes.
I like the imagery because it's like, you know, what you think of as hermit, right? Like it's kind of got that really classic, what, you know.
I love it. I can see it, and I'm just so in love with that. Oh,
this is one of my favorite decks ever, and it just never gets old to me. And I also feel like getting this particular, actually this one and the Aquarian deck, because I bought them at the same time from the same person, and it felt like a magical gift because I was like pretty broke at the time, and they were for some reason very inexpensive. And I was like, I might be getting scammed right now, but I'm gonna go for this. And then they're both complete and great. And I guess the person was just like done with it. I don't know. It was weird. So anyway,
I think it's fantastic. I gotta see if I can find it.
Yeah,
beauty.
It's got, I mean, it's faded because it's older, but this is the box.
Wow, that's gorgeous.
Yeah, I love it. And I love old stuff like this. Like it really reminds me, actually, this reminds me of my first hermit years, like of my life. When I was a kid at my Nana's house, she had this place like under her stairs that was like basically a little closet that was full of books. So, you know, like in Harry Potter, where he's like lives under the stairs and like reads books all the time, like that is the scene, but it was way before Harry Potter, like before I knew about that. But yeah, that little place, she had books everywhere, but under the stairs in that little area, it was my place where I could kind of be by myself. And I had a really like a magical childhood of like digging through her esoteric books. And that house doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. Like I know I've mentioned that to you. So when I find stuff that reminds me of it, like really old occult books, I'm like, I try to not like overbuy it because I know it doesn't really fill that space, you know, but when I find something that's the same, I get really excited because it's like, oh, special to me.
Yeah. Oh, so sweet.
Yeah, I forgot about that time. I forgot doing that, but that's actually where so much of my creativity as a child came from. Other than being outside in the garden, it was being under the stairs, being a little hermit. And I didn't even think about it.
That's so cool. I love that story. Sweet.
So how do you, if you want to move on to cards, like how do you see the hermit when this comes up in a reading? What comes up a lot of times?
I mean, it always depends on like the position of the card, meaning like where in the layout. If it's always referencing for me, it very rarely deters away from the same information of retreating, reflecting, really taking the time to look at the details of things. Mastership kind of comes up. Like the heightened level of solitude that understands the power of the one, like the individual, understands the power of having the answers within and not having to seek outside of the self. It I think that's ultimately the biggest thing. It's also being really methodical of when to spend time, leading others, when's the best time to just lead the self. And so those are the things that really stand out for me when I think of the hermit. And I want to share Anima Mundi's card.
Yeah. Is it a turtle? Oh, no. Lovely. It's an octopus.
It is an octopus. And I think it's appropriate because, they're very methodical of when they actually share their space or allow themselves to be seen. And they also like to retreat when they know that they're in danger or if their homes are usually underneath certain things. Darkness is actually a friend of theirs. And they're also really sensitive, right? I think they don't have a skeletal system. Or they might, I forget. I know that they don't. Okay. Yeah. So having to be able to be methodical of when to go out and when to come back in makes sense for this creature to be a representation of the hermit, and understanding the depths, also when to their wisdom in like ink, also being that of like when to share that to actually move direction when it's appropriate, right? So I don't know. I find that this is really supportive of that kind of characteristic. And then we have the Aquarian. And I like that. I think it says a lot that the hermit is actually facing away, right? Moving away from the crowd or others. Yeah, I guess that's what comes up for me. What comes up for you when you think of when you see the hermit?
Sure. So with hermit, for me, I do think of retreat. I'm actually thinking now of, I'm still kind of thinking about the octopus and how they communicate by turning into something. Or not turning into, but like, by like, instead of saying like words, like communicating with each other, they're just like, they just like think it and then they shape shift in a way.
Yes.
Yes. I'm not explaining that well. I also think of the time that is beyond words too. And that's something I'm kind of feeling as I'm in my hermit year too, where I've always considered myself really great with communication, and like I like to communicate. I like to offer wisdom, but there are times, like especially when I'm deep in the hermit zone, right, where it's harder for me to process what others are saying and to return. So I I'm gonna allow these people to come in if that's okay, but I'm trying to figure out how to mute everyone. What do you think?
Um,
Does it distract you to let people pop in?
yeah, I probably would be distracting.
Huh?
Yeah, it's distracting to let people in, but
Then let's not do it. It's okay. Everybody knew the time, and so I think that that's kind of comes back to like, the boundaries that I also I need them too, so it's okay. It's not that they'll get to watch the recording. I'd rather just not be thrown off the path. I also think of the Baba Yaga myth. Are you familiar? So
I am familiar with the Baba Yaga. But
yeah,
I want you to,
no,
to
well,
refresh.
I made this connection a while ago, and then I actually worked with someone who they showed me like what we were like, oh, what deck are you using? What deck are you using? We like showed each other our decks. And in their deck, Baba Yaga was the hermit. She was like on a broomstick or a mortar and pestle or something, or a pest, you know what I'm saying? Like she was on, it was a weird deck. I don't remember what it was. Maybe the Slavic tarot, I don't know. But I went with this deeper. I kind of, sat with that image. And I think we typically kind of not assume, but I usually see hermit depicted as a man. And I don't know why that is, when I think the spinster sort of archetype, I don't know, stereotype, archetype, I think that also really relates with solitude. And yeah, you can get some of their energy, but you might have to pay a price for it. It may not be one you want to pay. You really just want to seek their help if you really need it, And I think part of that idea has helped me with work too, because people do ask me, we've had this conversation before a little bit of like, some folks just want to like pick your brain, but they're not really taking it super seriously. But for us, it's actually an energetic drain to have people kind of like popping through. And I've really been practicing, this seems like something we could address in a consultation, or, this really seems like this is kind of why I read tarot, so that we can talk about that in your session, and not being, I don't know, was Baba Yaga really that bad? Was she really eating kids, or was she actually just kind of grumpy because people wouldn't leave her the fuck alone? I just wonder. You know what I mean? Was it?
Can you talk a little bit of Baba Yaga, just in case people don't know who she is?
So the Baba Yaga myth.
I don't think we're talking about the same energy now. So even for myself.
Yeah, Baba Yaga, it's this Slavic myth, Russian folktale. This is old lady in the woods. She lives in a hut, but it's on chicken legs, so it can move. Yeah. You didn't know that? Okay, let me tell you. So, and then she has like, what were her henchmen? They were just like these like skeletons, I think, that would like do her bidding. So she had like spies all over the forest, and so like kids would like stumble onto her property, and the whole thing is like she would eat them. But I just don't know, because most of the stories about her, the kids don't get eaten, even though they're being brats. And so it makes me wonder if actually, she's like really kind to some people. You get medicine from her, or she could decide not to like you, and then she'll eat you, or she'll eat your kids, or whatever. And I just think that that's so fascinating, because I think something I've personally been working through this year is this need to always show up and be like, not just be on, but be like really nice. Like I want to actually be nice, but I'm kind of over nice. I want to be compassionate and kind and authentic. And if that means that sometimes I come off a little like grumpy, I don't, you know what I mean? Like I have really kind of edited myself my whole life to make sure people know I'm not a jerk, right? And I'm just kind of like, dude, I'm just tired of that. I'm not really responsible for the narrative that somebody else kind of spins out of a little, like an interaction we had where I wasn't intending to be a jerk, So that's just something that, looking at that myth, it just kind of helps me to look at myths sometimes to see how that sort of can relate and fit in. And like, is Baba Yaga really that bad? Or maybe she was misinterpreted as
misinterpreted. Yeah.
And it's like a writer, like a fictional story, but still it's like, who wrote it? A guy. A man wrote it, but it's always
you
the
could
moral.
Also, look at all the symbolisms that come with being eaten or dying in that aspect as part of, the medicine, perhaps offering an ending of some kind of behavior, right, to then birth something else. But still, it's in the energy of limits and boundaries, which is so interesting because Saturn is in Aquarius, and we really are at this time learning new ways of how we want to interact with others, including those boundaries and limitations. And I think in alignment with what's coming up for us right now, and even just looking at the Hermit, and there is so much respect there. And the misunderstanding behind the Hermit also is because not many walk this path. Not many really do what a hermit, is known for, which is to move away from civilization, from the norm, from society, from the patterns that exist in culture, to go and find the answers that individual knows cannot find among others. So needs to go into solitude, into the cave, into the high mountain. And as they do that path and walk it alone, like a pioneer would, right? Then they can, whoever wants to follow that path, have a leader, someone who sheds the path on those things. And I feel like when it comes to the self, no one else can really decide what that is except for you. And that's why, when I pull this card, or it usually comes up, it usually has me encourage people to go back and stop asking people outside of you for the answer. It's time for you to go back inside and really pay attention to the things that have already been speaking to you and you've decided to not listen to, and actually consult or make sure, or maybe it's something you should do, but you're afraid to do. And so you consult others to avoid exactly what you need to do.
Who is it that said that that you're really like off track when you start polling everyone?
I've said that before too. Yeah. The minute you start, good example is an outfit. You buy a new blouse or a dress, or this is even for a man probably too. It's like you buy it and then you're asking, hey, how does it look? Does it look okay? And the minute that you start asking and consulting others, the answer. The answer is you don't feel well, so it doesn't look good, because all that ultimately matters is how you feel. How does something make you feel? Because that is going to influence the vibration that you walk in and how you affect the room and the space and others around you.
Yes.
So be the hermit, go back inside, pay attention to those things that are internal, or when you do this type of work, you get to heighten the volume of that internal voice. I think that's what the season we're in right now is, to go back and let's put the volume up into that internal voice, or that voice, or that connection to not just internal, but the higher self.
Yeah, definitely. I think too, hermit's like a choice. I think hermit on purpose is like, you know what? I think hanged one is like the one where it's like, it's not a choice. You just have to surrender, like you don't get to decide. Hermit, you can decide. You can pick up your lantern and do that shit or not. But doing so will illuminate so much for you. And I feel that the more that I do it, the more I really do it. like all the way out, you know? So, and I feel this when I go in a cave. And so since you were here and we went to that cave, we've been back a few times.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. And I'm actually going to go by myself on Saturday because it is time for me. I'm like, I got to do this. I got to go to a cave by myself. I need that time where I don't have to talk. It's just me and my lantern. And here too, I like how it's the 6th grade star. And I feel like that relates with, you know, that merging of higher and lower that we learn about. And so I think I was kind of sitting with the High Priestess and this card next to each other recently to kind of, because there are many similarities, I think, because they're both like, it's you, right? Like cut out the external as much, you know, rely on, not just relying on yourself, but dig deeper into yourself. But with High Priestess, I feel it's more about exploring and discovering your inner workings. Whereas with Hermit, it's like, it's more inviting in from higher and lower, like you were saying. And I'm not describing it well.
It's all good. Not time to take things seriously, right? True. I think you're explaining it just the way it should be. And I just want to share Cosmic Tarot, if you guys could see that, okay? Again, you know, the higher, the lower. Just, I think it's a beautiful piece. And he has Jupiter and the sun, and anyway, just beautiful symbols on there. Yeah. What about reversal of this card?
I think with reversals, what I notice, like a lot of times, I don't feel like it's blocked so much but sometimes it is like denying yourself that space that you need. It can be just the not refusal, but yeah, maybe unconscious refusal to do the work. Like sometimes it's a block, but I think more often for me, it comes up when it feels like it's not possible. Even though it is, it's like I've told myself, oh, it's actually not possible for me to have this. And so it comes up reverse, like, no, actually, you can. Like, actually, you can find a way. Prioritize it.
Oh, interesting. When I get this reversed for a reading for someone else, I usually get that it's time for them to share what they've learned, to actually not retreat, but go out and actually apply it to their life, whatever it is that they went and retreated to discover. So usually that's how I see that. But I love the way you thought of it as like a block or a resistance to actually going towards that option. That's definitely a possibility for sure.
I think for myself, that's how it comes up. But with other people, you know, I let the other cards in the spread kind of give me cues too. Because sometimes everything's sort of pointing at that already. And so it's like, okay, you have a lot of limiting beliefs, and the only way to work through them is to give yourself some space to get to the root. And you can't really get that with outside influences and noise in your ear. But I like your way of looking at it too, because that's a little more like uplifting. Like, oh yeah, you've been through a period of this and now you're coming out of it. Like, good for you. I think I told you this before. Are you ready to go to the next card?
Yeah, I'm ready. Okay. Let's go.
I told you before that 9 of Wands, to me, this is one of the hardest cards in the deck. And because I've had it come up in so many situations in my life with close friends. And I've told you some of those stories where I'm just like, wow, what does this actually mean? I love this version in the Apparition Tarot. It is a person in pink fire who's kind of saying a prayer, like, let this work out. Let me just keep going. Let me just keep going. Even though the room's on fire. And then here's the one in the Morgan Greer deck. And it's a little more like the Rider pack. In the Rider pack, since I don't have it, neither of us have it with us, I know this card, I can see it in my mind's eye because it's a person, it looks like a person who is guarding a bunch of sticks with their life, and they have an injury and they're half naked and they just look like ragged. Like, oh, this person's been through it and they're still standing. To guard what exactly? You know, like, what is it about these wands that needs that vigilance, you know?
Interesting. I have such resistance towards this card. I don't know what it is. I don't know. So this is Anima Mundi. And based on, like, it just making it click for me right now as you were sharing. It's interesting in this image. It's like that one wand that has the torch that's keeping it going, right? It's like, I feel so burnt out. There's still a little pilot light left. So it's not completely out. There's still a chance of this coming through to its final space or accomplishment. But I can see the whole guarding aspect in this deck, the Nine of Wands in the Herbal Tarot. Let me show you guys can see that. And the Herbal Tarot is referring to bayberry bark. I've never heard of this herb. Have you?
I haven't worked with bayberry.
No, I've never seen it. Man, it's yeah, when I pull this card, it, you know, usually it always tells me something about hard work and resilience. I'm going to show you also Aquarian.
Yeah, I love those because they're so, like, they're phallic, but they're also a little bit, they remind me of other stuff too. Don't they? How are they like a vagina and a penis at the same time? You know, that deck, do you ever think that? Sorry, I just
yes.
want to say it because
I thought it too, so it's just funny that you said that. I don't know how that is. I'm not gonna love you.
I'm gonna say if it's on my mind.
The Cosmic Tarot, and we have the Leo back there, the lion. Yeah, I mean, it's almost, I get why the Leo would be here or the lion, because they're known for that consistency and like that fixed fire of like still going and pushing through till the end, consistency. And I rarely pull this card. I'm going to be completely honest. It rarely comes up in a reading.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know, actually. I think this card has come up more for me personally and with like friends than it has ever in a reading. Like, I do 1 and 2 and 3 card readings all the time in my work, and you'd think that I would be getting it more for that, but I don't. But to me, it's that card of like, oh yeah, we're about to reach burnout, but you actually really don't get a break yet. Like, it's actually not possible. And I think that is not a very useful message for a lot of people to be like, no, you don't get to have the break, you know? Yeah. So, or no, that hunch you had, that truth that, you know, that's real. Unfortunately, that's real. The threat's real. It looks like it shouldn't be, and maybe you want to tell yourself it's not, but too bad, it's real. Is what I get too.
Yeah, that and some people don't want to do the work to like really, it's almost pointing to like something that's not sustainable.
No, definitely.
Right? It's like that ego driven work that is like your heart's not even in it anymore to sustain your what it takes to actually get the work done. So if anything, I really feel like it points towards like your soul and spirit not being in it anymore. And that perhaps you need to consider, is it really worth using all your fuel, everything you got to get where you originally thought you wanted to be? And it could point towards maybe it's not really what you expected, you know, that it takes more. And now you're wondering, is it worth it? Something that's worth it, you know, may take that much effort, or sometimes it may not. So it's kind of like really a moment when you pull that card to really think about, do I really want it that bad? Will I be able to live with the fact that I didn't try hard enough to just see it to the end? Or am I at a point that, you know what, hands up, I've actually learned that it's not worth it. It's not what I was looking for. And now I can change direction on where I want to put my fuel and energy.
Yes.
Right?
I get the idea of like a sunken cost fallacy almost too, which I know came up. I think that kind of came up with the sevens, because the sevens are also, you used the word assessment, and ever since you did, I have thought about assessment as, you know, like, oh, this is a moment where you can decide, like, do I want to continue or do I want to change direction? And at that point, I think in the sevens, you're more resourced to do so. But at 9, it's like, oh no, I've used a lot of my resources. The stakes are higher. But am I fucking miserable? You know what I mean? Or, you know, do I still want to stay with it? Maybe it doesn't come up a whole lot in readings, because most of the time, I will say, when people come to me, they are ready to do the work. They are ready to, or they're already kind of have a sense of like, you know, here's what I want, here's what I don't want. They don't need to be told what they want, if that makes sense. So I don't know. Okay. Maybe that's why it doesn't come up as much. I don't know.
I think for me, there's a block. I'll say why, because I think it's coming to the awareness of like, okay, so I'm an Aries, and we're really good starters, but not great finishers. Because we're the initiate, right? Like we're the ones that can get the shit started, but we burn out really fast because we give it all we want or all we have at the beginning. And I think that's why I'm just so resistant to this card, to this energy, to really thinking, for example, right now I'm on my 100 Days Freedom Challenge, and one of the tiers of my challenge is to post one thing on IG every day. And I'm just like, every day I have a moment of I'm just over it every day. And then, you know, I'll have one or here moments of like, oh, I'm actually inspired to post something. But it really feels like, okay, I almost feel like I might be here when it comes to the IG posts. You know,
I feel like that about certain parts of my practice, honestly. Not about tarot or about like what I do in general, but about certain things I offer. I'm like, tired of that, you know? And I guess I'm wondering why everything has to be so consistent. Where does it come from that we have to be consistent? Is that something we actually have to be? Or is there some sort of conditioning, like underlying root where we're like, consistency means you're good. Consistency means you're stable, safe, secure. Is it actually better to always be consistent? I'm wondering if there's a way that we can kind of, I guess personally, I'm just looking at rewilding that. What consistency it means. Because if I'm moving with the seasons, that means at certain times of the year, I'm offering more or offering less. And it doesn't necessarily fit in with how capitalism or Patreon wants things to work. It may not work with how other people expect content creation, or you know what I mean? But I don't need to create like everybody else. And Hermit is really teaching me that, actually, that I can offer all the things I want to, but they don't have to all be all at the same time. And most people don't expect that. And people who do, it's okay to disappoint them. They'll find that with someone else maybe, or not, but I don't have to live like that.
Yeah. I think what's behind that is also the culture, or even human nature, to get instant gratification. So if I have this goal, or if this is what I want to achieve, how fast can I get to that? And so that would require consistency, right? Because we wouldn't be able to go with the seasons and the waves of things. You would have to go in a straight line, as opposed to going with the waves and the curves of actual life.
Right. And we know that healing isn't linear. Like, we know that. I feel like that's something that we kind of accept. I think a lot of mystics and healing guides accept that. But then when it comes to our offerings, it feels like a completely different language. I don't know.
I get that. I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. This card really brought some stuff up, huh?
I think I need like to have a mirror up,
to the end. Yeah. To really be like, you're almost there. And it's like, even when we get there, like the cycle still goes. Like there will be something else even after that, I
move the goalpost a lot on myself for what success means. Yeah. I got 10K on Twitter, and guess what? Nothing happened. Literally nothing. Like I have a K at the end of the following count, and that's it.
Were there expectations that you would be getting around that? What do you think was going to happen?
I didn't. But I don't know. It was just something I was like, I want to just hit that. I don't know why. It's like something for my little ego gremlin to like try to get, like get more. Like it felt like a game. And now it's like, oh, I'm there. And no.
Yeah.
Why did I want this?
Yeah.
Nothing changed, but
interesting.
Yeah.
All right, I'm ready to move to the next card. What you think? All right, I'm feeling called for the cups.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So the 9 of Cups. What you got? Oh, hey, that's so cute.
I love it.
I love that. Is that a little angel in the? Oh, and
in a rainbow. It's like a wish, but it's not just a wish coming true. It's like a wish that's like blessed. Like your guides are like, not only do you get this, but it's not just because you're lucky, but it's because you're blessed. That's what I
get. That's so lovely. So this is Anima Mundi, and the cups or the chalices are underwater, but in a coral reef, which I feel is very rainbow-esque, similar to what you have in a sense, right? And what I'm reminded of in this image is more of like not so deep and not so up to the surface. It's like just right for there to be a perfect ecosystem of balance where many species can live and thrive and enjoy light and darkness and kind of be there where it's where people go snorkeling, right? The coral reefs are in a space of like where you can enjoy and really see everything, life closer to the surface than having to go really deep to really reach that. And so with the 9 of Cups, the one term or word that I think of is contentment. Okay. contentment, but content doesn't mean ultimate achievement or accomplishment or ultimate, what's the term I'm looking for? Satisfaction. Contentment is, to me, not ultimate satisfaction. It's where we get comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm content with this, but it's not the ultimate satisfaction or achievement of things, but it's a nice place to be when it comes to the matter of what really feels good. What feels good to me right now. I perhaps have a really good position. It's not challenging. It pays me enough. I don't need to really grow in this space. I like the people I work with. I'm comfortable. And that's what I get from this card. It's not a bad thing. It's not 100% great either, because it doesn't, I don't think, usually when this card comes up in a reading, it's like, okay, I've reached a place where, things really feel good and I don't need to really worry about anything. But typically it comes up when we need to just say, okay, yeah, everything looks good, but it won't last very long. It doesn't stay this way forever. So do you want to move towards like the ultimate? Then you would need to find change into challenge and things like that. But overall, I feel like it's typically a positive card. I don't really get bad messages when I get this card in a reading. Just that a reminder that it's not sustainable. It's not always going to be here. What about you? What do you think?
I was kind of just thinking about how the little person, it seems like all of our little people, other than this very different card, this very different version, they all kind of seem like they had the same stylist. And I just wonder who this is, right? Is this a little peddler that's like, I have the little pick-me-up on my cart that you need. You don't need it, but you can indulge and it's not a problem. And it'll just make you temporarily feel good to get that, lip gloss or whatever it is.
Oh, the little flush in the cheeks is the same with this character too.
They're just jolly. They're just good. They've had a good record.
Rosy. I think the feather is really something that connects the Fool to this character. I think it's done obviously on purpose, everything in the tarot. I think there's a purpose behind. But I think that's like the Fool in the card in the deck that has reached a point where it's like, okay, I feel pretty good. Either I've accomplished certain things or I have a better understanding about myself. I really am in a place where I am accepting of things. And if things don't, it's almost kind of a surrender energy a little, because you're like, I feel good. I feel like if things ended right now, I'd be fine. Kind of just not really attached to the ultimate place. It's really a serene space to have this card, at least in my experience, which is really nice.
Is that the herbal tarot?
This is the herbal tarot, yes.
And is that
the herb? What do you think it is?
It looks like cactus.
It's not. It's squaw vine.
Huh. I don't know that one. It's cute.
Interesting. I know, so cute.
I like how mine has like a little fairy godmother.
A fairy godmother? I know, I liked that too. So cute.
I almost think of Dolly Parton being like, because she's like this Mother Goose figure kind of person and she's called herself that. She said that about herself. And it's true, because she's kind of like, she kind of like goes around and kind of like blesses people with, like donations and visits and stuff. And she that's part of what gives her joy, because she's at a point in her life and in her career where she's done so much. And it's like, now what I do is I bless other people so they don't have to worry as much. Like that's what feels good. And I love that. I've always loved that about her. But that's kind of who I think of when I see fairy godmother. Like because to me, she represents a real life, like fairy godmother archetype. So I'm obsessed with Dolly Parton. So I'm like, I feel like a Dolly scholar at this point because I wrote one of my college papers about her. So she comes up a lot.
Sweet. All right. You feeling any of the others? I think, we have two more, right?
I am thinking about Pentacles and how this card to me, it represents intuition, but also abundance, but not necessarily abundance in a way of like, I have so much, though that is kind of what it looks like here, but more like I'm in a place where I can enjoy what I do have. Even if I don't have everything I want, I'm in this garden. I have access to the stuff I need the most for my optimal wellness is what I get.
Yeah. It's kind of like a great moment for, or you can't help when you get this card to be in a place when you get it. It's like you're in a place of being really grateful, right? It's like the gratitude card.
Yeah.
Like just being like really taking the step back after all your accomplishments and able to just kind of say, man, I could really see like things have really come into fruition, into formation, into manifestation, to be able to be like, my goodness, I have come so far. And so there's gratitude for how much work you've done, what you have in your life, how far you've come in your life. And so, yeah, I usually see that the same. She has grapes in this image. I wish you could see. Let me see if I lower this, you can see it better. She has grapes down here and a wine cup, a bird, which is typical. And you have a bird too, which I love in that card. There's grapes here. Dark grapes are in the herbal tarot.
What's the flower?
I don't know, but it's just pentacles. I think that's just how they show their pentacles in their deck.
I think of the bird as being like the intuition. We got here because we listened to our little selves, the little birdie messages.
Oh, I love that. I don't think I've seen the bird in the card before, but nothing ever speaks to me about it. I don't know why that is. Again, the nines are just like a block for me.
They're hard.
They're difficult because it's like the end of a cycle. And I wonder, I don't know, when you're in that phase, I wonder if you're not really looking for consultation at that point.
Maybe that's why we don't get them as much. I really don't get nines often, except for hermit.
Yeah, hermits are very common. I'm going to show the Aquarian and Anima Mundi, 9 of Pentacles. Again, the bird. So cute. And then Anima Mundi, the tiger. Isn't that interesting? The tiger, is that confusing to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what is that? Why the tiger? I don't know. I don't know. But yes, I don't ever feel like there's very much to really dig when that card comes up, but really I can't help it. It's an earth element. So you really are it's like you could actually see the difference, the changes and how far you've come. And I feel like that's a really nice place to be able to just sit back and reflect and not have to do much. And getting closer to what your ultimate goal is, I guess.
All right. I feel like doing the 9 of Swords. I can hear my little guy. I will be right back. I just need like 60 seconds, but I just want to be totally here for it. So I just need like 60 seconds if that's okay.
Yeah, you're going to pause the recording.
I'm just going to mute myself if you want to get yourself set up. I just need a second. Sorry.
Oh, interesting.
All right, then. Sorry about that. He is fine. Oh, no. I should have paused.
I'm so sorry.
Don't be. I'm the one that needed the pause.
No, it's just like, yeah, I can feel myself getting so hot.
Same.
Yeah?
Everybody's fine. I just, when I hear him peripherally, sometimes I'm like, is something wrong? Like, no, nothing's wrong.
Mommy.
Yeah.
I
Sometimes laughter sounds like the same as disaster. So it's that age. But anyway, yeah. So 9 of Swords. I know I also have to be kind of ready for this card because this was a reoccurring card for me for a long time when I was having the worst sleep of my life. And I think of sleep paralysis when I think of this card.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think of being in this, if you're not, I mean, if anyone listening in the future is not familiar with sleep paralysis, in my case, I would wake up, I would be actually trying to go to sleep, and I would keep waking up with this horrible sensation of being held down, and this sometimes getting horrible like hallucinations of things. And it felt very much like being tormented. And I had that for a really, like, I don't know, a little bit as a child, but a lot when I was in college. And it actually is part of what made me put tarot down for a little while. But I just had so many things going on. I had to put a lot of things down at that time and get myself back. It's actually why I started doing dream work, because the nightmare situation was just so bad that I was like, oh God, I have to figure out how to work with this rather than it be this thing that like takes over my life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Sleep paralysis. That's so interesting.
I'm surprised I never told you about that. I don't know why I thought.
Yeah, I want to know more. But I think of somewhat the opposite, where it's like zero sleep. Like you don't even, I think of this card, I think of like not being able to sleep, so much anxiety, so much worry, even from like the things from the past or evident or things that are now, things that are out of one's control, kind of taking control or allowing those things to take control in your space so much that it interrupts your rest.
I mean,
I guess I could see the paralysis thing being a thing. Now that you've said that, and I could think of it, but I think of it just being, I could see that, yeah, like waking up from a nightmare and like thinking it's absolutely real and having that bleed into your reality so much.
Yeah.
But again,
well, I never got all the way to sleep. So that's what it is. Like I would be going to sleep and I would start having the paralysis and the hallucination, and I would get up, and then it would be this cycle where then I would like put off going to, like trying to go to sleep, and that would aggravate it, and it would just get worse and worse until I was like super, you know, when you're super sleep deprived and like everything's kind of like a dream, but in a bad way, like when you're awake, you know. I was like walking through that for a long time, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. This card is a tough card. I
It
feel
was
like all of these typically, except for I guess not all of them, huh? It depends. But like this card and the wands tend to be, at least for me, like a challenging card. But oh my gosh, that sounds super intense. I can relate in the fact of like I actually would have. I've never had sleep paralysis before. I've known people that have. But I've suffered from nightmares and also spirit hauntings in my dreams that for a very long time, I would say almost two years as a young child, having to go through that alone and wetting the bed until I was 7 because of that same thing and what was happening to me psychically and not understanding that. Sleep was horrible, focus was horrible, fear was intense, not feeling safe in my house, not even feeling safe in my bed for a very long time. I would say that now that you brought that up, it really does. Thanks for sharing that, because that really does pull up and help me connect to this card even on a deeper level. But before this, it was really seeing the matters of the mind really getting into and leaking and penetrating and influencing the day-to-day is how I see this card. In fact, I actually pulled this card today for someone, but it was reversed. And of course, it's different for everyone, and I always get something different. But today it was showing me reversed was like the demise or the death of the mind. Like, you know how when the mind is just so ridiculous or the thoughts are so ridiculous, it's almost like at a poker game, it's showing its cards. It's so revealing. It's so out there that you can call its bluff. And that's how I see the reverse version of it. It's like almost like, because I see the vulture here, but today reverse really was talking about for the individual more of the death of the mind, the death of the ego. It's almost like something is happening so repeatedly that it is now showing and exposing itself to not be true, not actually being the circumstance. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I can see it. I'm thinking about, excuse me, how differently I read a little while ago that Crowley's interpretation's like really different. And he said that everyone has this card wrong, you know, like he would, and says that because in their writer pack, you know, it's a person waking up similar to the one of them that you showed. And his interpretation was that you wake up from a dream that was so amazing, so wonderful that you're like bummed that that's not your reality. Like that's paraphrasing like what he thought about it. And I feel like for me, it's the opposite, where it's like, oh, I can't even get to the dream. What are dreams? You know, when I'm in this space, I don't have dreams. I don't have the bandwidth for that. I'm just trying to like survive, you know? And I feel like everybody's been there at least once.
Yes, absolutely. It's tough. This image is really interesting. I thought from the Cosmic Tarot, you can see there's a snake at the bottom. There's also like a plane flying, almost like warfare in the back. And the swords are like bullets from something up above. And then feeling like you cannot escape and it's tearing things down in your physical world, again, influencing and affecting your day to day. And so it's almost like it's also something that, of course, doesn't, it's not forever, but it's, oh my gosh, I just noticed that one of the knives went into him. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Oh,
Got him. Got him.
it's a tough card. It's a tough card. Yeah, it got in his leg, it got in his body. It's like, it really is so much that it is starting to penetrate the real world. And that's when I think people are really like, I need to do something. And I think you hit that point. It was like, I need to do, now it's really, it's not just here, it's now going into my world. It's affecting all those things. And there's a way to, there must be a way for me to actually do something with this. That's before me. Wow. That's
I
really
think
amazing.
This card reminds me of like the opposite of rose-colored glasses. It's like your rage-colored glasses, where it's like you see shit everywhere, because that is kind of, you're not even seeing what could be good or what could be supportive. All you can see is bullshit, because that's where you're at mentally. I've been there, like I've gotten so deep with that, just with sleep deprivation in general, like knowing how that just colors everything, every interaction, my sensitivity, the way I take little comments or anything. It's like, I think lack of sleep has made me burn more bridges in my life than anything else, truly. Because when I am sleepy, when I guess hungry or anything like that, it could be, when your needs aren't met, I guess. When your needs aren't met, it's easier for the worst parts of you to show. But sleep deprivation was the one for me where I had to address it, because it was like, wow, I am just a jerk. I'm just a jerk to everyone and myself, but mostly to myself, right? Because I tend to be harder on me first. So then, but I almost would take that, at least at that time, I would take it for myself. But when I noticed that, oh, wait, like you were saying, oh, it bleeds onto everything I touch, I can't handle it. I have to do something.
Yeah.
So
it's a breaking point.
It is kind of like the mental breakdown card for sure.
Yeah. Really. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. The Hermit and the Nines. Interesting conversation.
Intense. We deep. We went deep.
We really deep.
We got historical.
Like, oh my God. It brought up a lot of things. I'm just like, ooh. I'm going to go into hermit mode now.
I'm thinking of the version of Hermit that's in Charlie Burgess deck. Oh my gosh, what is it called? They're the Word Witch. What is that deck called? Anyway, it's a turtle with a little.
What turtle?
It's a turtle with a candle on its back, and I just love that, because that is how it feels in some ways, where I think hermit almost gets like a negative connotation, like, oh, that hermit, that shut in, like that curmudgeon. I think like when people talk about being a hermit or someone else doing that, and it's like, why is that a problem? Why is it a problem for someone to want to be in solitude?
I still feel like I'm judged by people around me for being sensitive. I think there's a what's the term I'm thinking of? A negative connotation or a negative perspective on those that are sensitive. They consider us weak, the weakest link, if you will. And I mean, even in my own like circle of people outside of the magical community, I could see that, there's at least I feel it. I feel like there's something there that makes me still self-conscious for being who and how I am. But also, you know, points towards like, am I, again, still fully accepting myself in that aspect? I still have healing to do around that, of course. Even just physically sensitive, like because I walked so much to school as a young kid, I gave myself a hairline fracture from walking so much on my foot. Like nothing happened. It was just me walking so much. And so I used to be really sensitive growing up, even my hands, my body, I would bruise easily. It was just a thing. And so because of that, also it's like I don't really do a lot, or when I get a cut or something, I'm sensitive about it. I am. Either have to cry about it or like trying to suck it up is difficult.
I have to cry. I was having a conversation about this earlier today, but would you ever have a cry like that you just need to get out? Like, you know, it's in the chamber for a while. It's like, oh, I feel like a more deep cry, like percolating. Okay. And then you finally get to do it. You know, you're in a space where you don't have to be on, and you finally get to do it, and it feels really good. Do you indulge in a cry?
I don't know about indulge.
It almost,
I would describe it as that.
Yeah.
I guess maybe. I don't know. It's hard for me to answer.
I love that release. Absolutely love that release.
You?
I recently did that, and I was like, oh yeah, I love to cry. Love it. I don't like getting worked up to the point where that finally happens, because it's like I feel like something little has to happen to finally, like, you know, like tip it over. So I don't like getting there, but once it's time and the tears are flowing, it's like, oh, thank goodness.
So good. Yeah.
So good. It does feel indulgent.
It is a release, and
yeah.
I think I may have I've been putting more of a practice of not conserving that for a different time and just doing it when it happens. That maybe that's why I don't know if like there's an indulgence behind it. But that's so interesting. I love the word, I love a good cry.
I do. Well, and I cry often anyway. But I still think there's a little bit of a backlog somehow, even though I cry like really often. And actually in school, so mentioning how sensitive you were growing up, like emotion-wise, that I was called a crybaby my entire life. Like in school, I was teased for that because I cried easily, and then people knew they could do it to me, so they would just because they could, because kids are mean asses, you know. They're not, but that's how it felt, right? They were just like, you know, I was a jerk to people too. I'm not judging them for it, but you know, I was known as crybaby. And now as an adult, I come in contact with many people who are unable to cry. Like they have a hard time getting there. And I almost feel like, wow, what a weird gift that I've always been able to just do that, even though I could be ridiculed. I mean, I could be so embarrassed, and that would just make me cry more. It just made it worse, you know? And then I'd be like, oh, I'm embarrassed. I'm going to just cry more. Like I couldn't help it. Like it just, it had to come out of me, you know?
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right, guys, this is the time to cry.
This is the time. I'm so glad we got to have this chat.
Oh, I'm so happy to have been able to do it too. It's time for me to go back into my shell a little bit, or up my mountain, and do all that stuff. That's what it feels like. It's appropriate.
Yeah, same. But yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to end the recording, but I'll still be here. So, okay.